Hi, what is good, people? Now, I know this album has been out for a few weeks, couple weeks, and initially I was gonna do a review of the album when it first dropped. I've taken my time with it. I decided to just listen to it in completely different environments and give my overall conclusion and judgment of the album from a logical, rational, and music connoisseur perspective of the album. Now, I've titled this video as even an atheist would say this album is a classic. And this is why I've titled it that. We all know Kanye West, when it comes to music, is a genius. But I think the reason why he's a genius, when you really think about it, is because he's willing to take risks that pay off. So, for instance, he took a risk when he decided to use auto-tune with regards to his singing. And that was in 808 and Heartbreaks, right? So that was a risk. He really pushed in the early parts of his career the whole soul sampling and speeding it up and things like that as well. And it worked. So these risks are like paying off. He then did the Jesus Walks. I can't remember what album that was on. I think that was on either Graduation or College Dropout. And it was a hit. Even with his production of Yeezys, like they're doing very, very well. And that whole approach to designing sneakers in that way was kind of risky, but it paid off for Adidas, who own Yeezys now. And don't get me wrong, sometimes when he takes some risks, sometimes they don't work. But I'm just referring to the times when they do work. Even with College Dropout, classic album, right? In his career, when he takes risks that are calculated, they tend to pay off, and that's what makes him a genius. It's almost like even Steve Jobs. He took a risk when it came to creating the foundations of Apple, and it paid off. Christopher Nolan, when he took a risk with a movie called Inception, and he's a genius when it comes to that field of work. Quentin Tarantino as well. Kanye West is that when it comes to music. And Jesus is King. It's a classic. It is a classic album. If you like College Dropout, My Dark Twisted Fantasy, 808 and Heartbreaks, you can't not like Jesus is King. You cannot like My Dark Twisted Fantasy and not like College Dropout. You can't like 808 and Heartbreaks and not like Jesus is King. They would just work all symmoniously. It is a classic album. And there's even an interview where he actually says, you know, he's trying to get back to the essence of the music that he was making before, where it was
to what is known as Africa. I just need to go and even find out what it's really called and just grab the soil and cook food, 5 meals a day so the metabolism stays up, and have my kids in the studio and have the mic in the open so you can hear, nature while we're recording. And so we're gonna bring out the album on what is known as Black Friday, and which is November 23rd. And I'm so happy about what's happening. Just to give the people the full yay, because a lot of people say there hasn't been albums as good as Watch the Throne and Dark Fantasy and 808 since that time.
Just great music. And he's managed to do that with this album. Now, I actually listened to the album by mistake, by accident. I was just walking and one of the tracks played from a random shuffled playlist. And I was like, you just got to have your earphones in, my headphones in. And I was thinking, damn, what song is this? So I took my phone out of my pocket, and it was the On God song by Kanye West from Jesus is King album. I was like, oh damn, I didn't even know I had this. I gotta listen to this whole album now. So I then listened to the whole album, and I was like, yeah, every track, there's no point in me even going through each track and speaking on each track, because the whole album is a classic. There might be one song that I would rate a 4 out of 5, but even then, that it still makes the album a classic, because you can have one song that isn't a perfect song. That's fine. Just like with 808 and Heartbreaks and My Dark Twisted Fantasy. Even Graduation was a big album. But Watch the Throne as well. It's exactly the same thing. If you like Watch the Throne, 808 and Heartbreaks, My Dark Twisted Fantasy, you can't not like Jesus is King, because it is just the same. It's just as good. It's Kanye West at his very best. So, you know, and to me, like, the ad-libs, the beats are banging, the ad-libs are on point, and he had the choir. It's like he put his own approach to it, which is what he usually does when it comes to music, which is what makes him a genius when he takes these risks, because he will use his own musical mind and put a spin on it. And it tends to work. Usually, more often than not, it works out. He knows what he's doing. The choir, they kind of sound like they're war chanting, like tribal-esque, which would explain why he went to Africa. Probably for the inspiration, and I think he produced majority of the album there. I'm not too sure. In this album, to me, it sounds super, super fire. And if you haven't heard it, for whatever the reason, you need to hear it, because this is a classic album. The only two albums that I think compete with this year is Summer Walker's I'm Over It album, I think is what it's called, Summer Walker, and Tory Lanez's Chicks Take 5, which I'm still listening to now. Other than that, Kanye West's Jesus is King is a classic album. And if you haven't heard it, you need to hear it. You need to hear it. It's fire. I would not be surprised if this is number one or is doing very well on the Billboard. I really won't be surprised, because you just can't deny good music. It's just undeniable. And that goes in line with the title of this video. Even an atheist would say this is a classic. Because really and truly, I could have just called this video, an unbiased person would consider this a classic. Even an unbiased person would say Kanye West's Jesus is King is a classic album. The reason for that is because you can't deny good music. It's just as simple as that. You can't deny music that just sounds good to your ears. It's as simple as that. To me, this is a classic album in my opinion.